My name is Wendy Dixon. I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, my parents stood up at their 40th wedding anniversary dinner and announced to 30 guests, "We're taking the whole family to Hawaii next week for another celebration." Everyone clapped. My sister squealed with excitement. I smiled, already imagining palm trees and ocean breezes. My first real vacation in years. Then I made the mistake of asking a simple question. "What time is our flight?" My father looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. My mother's smile tightened. And in front of every guest in that room, my dad said, "You don't need to know, Wendy. You're not part of this trip. Someone has to stay behind and take care of the kids." 30 pairs of eyes. 30 witnesses to the moment my family told me I wasn't really family at all. But here's what they didn't know. I had a secret. One I'd been building for 3 years. And that night, I decided it was finally time to use it. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, to understand why I walked away from everything I knew, let me take you back to the beginning. The Dixon family lives in a white colonial house in the suburbs of Boston. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, lawn trimmed to HOA perfection. The kind of house that screams, "We made it," to anyone driving by. My father, Harold Dixon, retired 3 years ago from his position as a branch manager at a regional bank. My mother, Patricia, has never worked a paid job in her life, but she'll tell you she's busier than any CEO, chairing the church women's committee, organizing neighborhood fundraisers, maintaining what she calls our family's reputation. Then there's my sister, Megan, 3 years younger than me, married to Derek Hartley, a corporate attorney at a firm downtown whose name she drops into every conversation. They have 2 kids, a 5-year-old named Oliver and a 3-year-old named Sophie, and a brand new Lexus SUV that always gets the prime spot in our parents' driveway. My Honda Civic, the one I've been driving for 10 years. It gets parked on the street. "Wendy, move your car," my mother would say whenever I visited. Derek's bringing the Lexus, and guests notice what's in the driveway first. I never questioned it. I just moved my car. That's the thing about being the invisible one in your family. You stop noticing all the small ways they've already decided you don't matter. The nicer parking spot, the better seat at the table. The way your mother introduces your sister to guests by her husband's job title. While you're just Wendy, she helps out. I work as a part-time accountant. Mostly remote clients. Flexible hours, modest income. Nothing impressive by Dixon family standards, but I never told them about the other thing I do. The thing I started 3 years ago after my life fell apart in a different way. I never told them I'd learned to see. Let me paint you a picture of what helping out looks like in the Dixon family. Thanksgiving. I arrive at 6 a.m. to start the turkey. I set the table with my mother's Wedgwood china. The set I'm not allowed to use, only to wash. I arrange the flowers, polish the silver, coordinate the timing of 7 side dishes. Megan arrives at noon in a cashmere sweater, kisses everyone hello, and sits down to be served. Christmas, same routine, plus wrapping all the presents my mother bought because her arthritis is acting up. Funny how her arthritis never stops her from playing bridge 3 times a week. Birthday parties for my niece and nephew. I'm the entertainment coordinator, the cleanup crew, and the backup babysitter all in one. Last year, I spent 8 hours running Oliver's dinosaur-themed party while Megan got a manicure because she needed a break. The one time I asked if maybe, just maybe, I could skip a family event because I had a deadline for a client, my mother's voice went cold. Family comes first, Wendy. We all make sacrifices. Except I'm the only one. Whoever seems to make them. The breaking point comes in small moments. Like the year I got my Christmas gift, a kitchen apron that said "World's Best Aunt" in glittery letters. Megan gave it to me. She smiled like she'd done something thoughtful. I wore it. I wore it every single time I came over to cook, clean, and babysit. Do you want to know when I realized the truth? It hit me one random Tuesday evening while I was scrubbing my mother's Le Creuset pot after yet another family dinner. I couldn't remember the last time anyone had invited me somewhere without expecting me to work. 3 years ago, my life fell apart. I'd been dating a man named Kevin for 4 years. We talked about marriage, about kids, about a future. Then one evening, he sat me down and said the words I'll never forget. I love you, Wendy, but I don't think I'm in love with you anymore. You're just there. You're always just there. Always just there. Like furniture, like wallpaper. After he left, I wandered into a pawn shop downtown. I don't know why. Maybe I was looking for something to fill the hole. That's when I saw it. A Canon DSLR camera. Used but well maintained, tagged at 180. I bought it with money I should have saved. I told no one. That camera became my secret. I started photographing things most people ignore. Elderly women at bus stops. The tired faces of overnight janitors. The calloused hands of a street vendor. People who society looks right through. The same way my family looks right through me. I called the series Invisible Women. I created an anonymous Instagram account. No face, no real name, just the photos. Over 3 years, I gathered 12,000 followers. People who saw what I saw, people who understood. I kept the camera wrapped in an old cashmere scarf at the back of my closet. It was the only thing I ever kept for myself. 3 weeks before my parents' anniversary party, I got an email that I almost deleted as spam. It was from a gallery in Monterey, California, Coastal Light Gallery, asking if I'd be interested in discussing my work. I stared at that email for 20 minutes before I realized my hands were shaking. But I didn't reply. Not yet, because good things didn't happen to people like me. There's one person in my family who actually sees me. Her name is Ruth, and she's my mother's younger sister. Aunt Ruth is what my mother calls the family disappointment. She never married. She followed her passion for ceramics instead of getting a real job. 20 years ago, she moved to Carmel by the sea to open a small cafe with a pottery studio in the back. My mother hasn't forgiven her since. Ruth threw away her potential, my mother likes to say. She could have had a good life, but she chose to play with clay. I've been calling Aunt Ruth every Sunday night for 7 years. My mother doesn't know. It was Aunt Ruth who first saw my photographs. I'd sent her one, just one, testing the waters, and her response made me cry. Wendy, this is extraordinary. You have a gift. Nobody had ever called anything I did extraordinary. She was the one who encouraged me to keep shooting, to keep posting. And she was the one who 3 weeks before my parents' anniversary said something that changed everything. Wendy, I hope you don't mind, but I sent your Instagram link to someone, a gallery owner I know in Monterey. His name is Marcus Coleman. He's looking for emerging artists. I nearly dropped the phone. Aunt Ruth, that's the gallery that emailed me. I know, sweetheart. He told me he wants to talk to you about a solo exhibition. Silence, my heart pounding. But that's real. That's an actual career thing. Yes, it is. Her voice was gentle but firm. And you deserve it. You don't need anyone's permission to pursue what you love. I learned that lesson late. You don't have to. That night, I replied to Marcus Coleman's email. Now, let me bring you to the night that changed everything. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary. A milestone worthy of a party, according to my mother, which meant 30 guests, a catered menu that I would assist with to save money, and an evening of celebrating the Dixon family's 4 decades of picture-perfect marriage. The preparation started a week before. I took 3 days off from my accounting clients to help set up. I ordered flowers, white roses and peonies per my mother's specifications. I handwrote 60 place cards in the calligraphy she insisted upon. I coordinated with the caterer, pressed the tablecloths, polished the Waterford crystal glasses that had been a wedding gift 40 years ago. On the day of the party, I arrived at 7 a.m. I wore jeans and a t-shirt because there was no point dressing up when I'd be in the kitchen for the next 10 hours. By 6 p.m., the house looked perfect. Candles glowed on every surface. The dining table stretched across the living room set for 30 with my mother's finest china. I had changed into a simple black dress. Nothing fancy, nothing that would draw attention. Wendy. My mother's voice caught me in the hallway. She looked me up and down, frowning. Is that what you're wearing? It's black. I thought it was appropriate. It's fine, I suppose. Just stay in the background. Today is about your father and me. I nodded. I always nodded. Guests began arriving at 7. The men in sports coats, the women in cocktail dresses, old colleagues, church friends, neighbors whose lawns were as immaculate as ours. 30 people who thought they knew the Dixon family. None of them knew me at all. And in 3 hours, that wouldn't matter anymore. Megan arrived at 7:15, perfectly timed for maximum impact. She swept through the front door in a red wrap dress, Diane von Furstenberg she'd announced to anyone who asked, with Derek behind her in a charcoal suit and their 2 children dressed like catalog models. My mother rushed to embrace her, exclaiming over how beautiful she looked, how handsome Derek was, how precious the grandchildren were. I watched from the kitchen doorway holding a tray of bruschetta. Everyone, you remember my daughter Megan and her husband Derek, my mother announced to the room. Derek's a partner at Whitmore and Associates. They just made him partner last year. We're so proud. Applause, smiles, congratulations. My mother never mentioned that I was the one who'd done Derek's taxes for 3 years, free of charge, naturally. I circulated with appetizers, refilled wine glasses, answered questions from guests who didn't recognize me. Are you with the catering company? One woman asked, reaching for a crab cake. Before I could answer, my mother appeared. Oh, that's Wendy, my other daughter. She's helping out tonight. The woman smiled politely and turned away. My mother didn't notice. She never noticed. At one point, Derek approached me with Sophie squirming in his arms and Oliver tugging at his jacket. Hey, can you take them? Megan and I need to mingle. Not would you mind? Not thank you, just can you take them? Like passing off luggage. I took them. I fed them dinner in the kitchen. I wiped Sophie's face when she spilled juice on her dress. I told Oliver 3 stories to keep him from running into the living room and disrupting the party. When I finally emerged, dessert was being served. I hadn't eaten anything all day. No one had thought to save me a plate. The announcement came at 9 o'clock, right after my mother's tiramisu was served. My father stood up, tapping his champagne glass with a fork. The room fell silent. 30 faces turned toward him with expectant smiles. Patricia and I want to thank you all for being here tonight, he began, his voice warm with rehearsed charm. 40 years of marriage, 4 decades of building this family, this life, this home. My mother beamed beside him. Megan reached for Derek's hand. I stood near the kitchen doorway, still holding a dirty dessert plate. And to celebrate this milestone, my father continued. We have a surprise announcement. He paused for effect. My mother's eyes sparkled. Next week, we're taking the whole family to Hawaii. 1 week at the Four Seasons in Maui, a second celebration, just the Dixons. The room erupted in appreciative murmurs. How wonderful. What a gift. You two deserve it. Megan actually squealed. Dad, that's amazing. The kids are going to love it. I felt something lift in my chest. The whole family. That meant me, too. For once, I wouldn't be cooking, cleaning, or babysitting. I'd actually be included. I stepped forward, allowing myself a small smile. That sounds incredible. What time is our flight? The question hung in the air. My father's expression shifted. He glanced at my mother. Something passed between them. A look I'd seen 1,000 times, but never understood until that moment. Wendy, he said slowly. You don't need to know the flight time. The room went quiet. Not the comfortable silence of anticipation, but the tense quiet of something going wrong. I don't understand, I heard myself say. My father cleared his throat. Because you're not going. 30 pairs of eyes. That's how many people watched my father tell me I wasn't part of the family vacation. Someone needs to stay behind, my mother added, as if this were the most logical thing in the world. Megan and Derek need a real vacation. That means you'll watch the children. But I started. Honestly, my mother's tone sharpened. You don't have anything important to do. Megan works hard. She deserves a break. Megan works hard. Megan, who hadn't held a job since Oliver was born. Megan, who had a nanny 3 days a week and still complained about being exhausted. It's just a week, Derek added, not even looking at me. The kids love you. I stood there in my plain black dress holding a dirty plate while 30 people watched me be dismissed from my own family. Some of them looked uncomfortable. Most of them just looked away. One woman, I didn't know her name, leaned toward her husband and whispered something. He nodded. I caught the words, poor thing. She must be used to it by now. The champagne glass in my hand trembled. I set down the plate, set down the glass, because I didn't trust myself not to drop them. Of course, I heard myself say. I understand. I smiled, the smile I'd learned to wear after 32 years of being the one who helps out, the one who doesn't complain, the one who is always, always just there. But something inside me had finally cracked. Not broken, cracked, like a fault line shifting before an earthquake. I excused myself to the kitchen. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. And for the first time in my life, I started making a different kind of plan. The party continued without me. Of course, it did. I stayed in the kitchen mechanically washing dishes while laughter and conversation drifted in from the living room. At one point, Megan appeared, her red dress swishing against the doorframe. Wendy, don't be upset, she said, reaching for my arm. You know how it is. Derek and I really need this time together. It's been so stressful lately with the kids. I kept washing. I understand. Besides, you're so good with Oliver and Sophie. They'll barely notice we're gone. I rinsed a champagne glass, set it in the drying rack, said nothing. Megan sighed the way she always does when she thinks I'm being difficult. Look, it's just a week and you don't have like a boyfriend or anything tying you down. Your schedule is flexible. Flexible? That word again. As if my time had no value because I chose how to spend it. Derek made a list, she continued, pulling out her phone. Their schedules, food allergies. Sophie can't have strawberries, remember? And there's this new thing with Oliver's ear. He might need drops. I'll text you everything. She didn't ask if I was willing. She just assumed. That's when Derek appeared, loosening his tie. All sorted. Great. We're heading out early tomorrow to pack. Megan, your mother wants photos before we leave. They were gone before I could respond. Not that I would have. Not that I ever did. But as I stood there alone in my mother's kitchen, staring at the list of instructions Megan had just texted me, a single thought crystallized in my mind. They don't see me as family. They see me as staff, and staff can resign. It was almost midnight when I found the emails. The last guests had finally left. My parents had gone to bed, exhausted from accepting 40 years' worth of congratulations. I was alone in the living room folding tablecloths when I realized I needed to send a file to a client whose deadline I'd pushed back for this party. My laptop was at home. My mother's was on the kitchen counter. She won't mind, I told myself. She'd borrowed my things 1,000 times without asking. I opened the laptop. Safari was already running. And there it was, my mother's Gmail, still logged in. I should have clicked away immediately. I should have minded my own business, but I saw my name in the subject line of a recent thread. Hawaii arrangements, Wendy situation. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I knew I shouldn't. I knew whatever I found would hurt. I clicked anyway. The thread was between my mother and Megan starting a week before the party. From Patricia Dixon to Megan Hartley, keep Wendy here to watch the kids. She doesn't have anything important to do anyway. Derek was right. It's like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. And Megan's reply, totally agree, Mom. She'll probably feel useful for once. It's kind of sad, honestly, but at least it works out for us. I read those words 3 times to make sure I understood them. Free help. She should be grateful. Kind of sad. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I deleted my email from the sent folder and cleared the browser history. Then I sat in my mother's dark kitchen in the house where I'd grown up and finally let myself understand exactly what I was to them. I drove home at 1 o'clock in the morning through empty streets. My apartment was small, a 1-bedroom in a building that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Beige carpet, white walls, furniture I'd bought secondhand. My mother had called it depressing, the one time she visited, but it was mine, the only space where I could breathe. I sat in the darkness for a long time, staring at my phone. The email from Marcus Coleman glowed on the screen, the one I'd answered but never followed up on. We'd exchanged a few messages about a potential meeting. He wanted to see my full portfolio in person. He was excited about the series. I could go. I could actually go. I picked up my phone and called the only person who would understand. Aunt Ruth answered on the second ring. Even though it was past midnight. Wendy, what's wrong? I told her everything. The announcement, the humiliation, the emails. My voice cracked exactly once when I read aloud the words, free help. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then Aunt Ruth said something I'll never forget. Wendy, I have a spare room above the cafe. I need help with the morning shift anyway. And that gallery? It's 20 minutes from my place. Aunt Ruth, I can't just. Yes, you can. You can leave. You can choose yourself for once. The only person stopping you is you. I hung up at 2 o'clock in the morning. By 6, I'd started packing. 3 suitcases, my camera equipment, my laptop, the cashmere scarf that had wrapped my Canon. For 3 years, I left behind the world's best aunt apron. For the first time in 32 years, I was choosing myself. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between your family and yourself? Have you ever stood at a crossroads where staying meant losing who you were? Tell me in the comments, what would you do? Would you stay and endure it, or would you leave? And if this story matters to you, please hit that like button. Now, let me tell you what happened when I told them I was leaving. 2 days before my family's Hawaii trip, I drove to my parents' house one last time. My mother was in the living room coordinating outfits for the vacation. Megan sat on the couch scrolling through resort reviews. Derek was somewhere upstairs, probably on a work call. My father was reading the paper in his armchair, the way he always did, present in body, absent in attention. I need to tell you something, I said from the doorway. My mother barely looked up. If it's about the children's schedule, Megan already sent it to you. It's not about that. I steadied my voice. I'm not watching the kids. I won't be available. That got their attention. Megan's head snapped up. My mother's hands froze over a pile of sundresses. What do you mean not available? My mother asked. I have a work opportunity in California. I'm leaving tomorrow. California. My father lowered his newspaper. What kind of work opportunity? It's professional. Something I've been working toward. I didn't owe them the details. I didn't owe them anything. Megan's face twisted. Wendy, you can't be serious. I'm counting on you. We all planned around this. You planned around me without asking me, I said quietly. I'm not canceling my life because you assumed I didn't have one. The silence was deafening. Then my mother stood up, her voice cold as January. This is incredibly selfish, Wendy. Megan needs your help. Family comes first. Family comes first, I repeated. Except when it comes to inviting me to Hawaii. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, Patricia Dixon had nothing to say. My father cleared his throat. If you leave, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms. I understand, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. The next 24 hours were a masterclass in emotional manipulation. My mother called 6 times. Each voicemail was more dramatic than the last. You're tearing this family apart, Wendy. I hope you can live with that. Your father is devastated. He barely ate dinner. Megan cried all evening. The children kept asking where Aunt Wendy was going. Megan took a different approach. Weaponized vulnerability. Wendy, I don't understand why you're doing this to me. I'm your sister. Don't you care about us at all? And then the text that nearly broke me. You're going to end up alone, just like Aunt Ruth. Is that what you want? I stared at that message for a long time. Just like Aunt Ruth. They meant it as an insult. They meant it to scare me. But Aunt Ruth had her own business, her own art, her own life built on her own terms. Aunt Ruth was happy. Maybe ending up like Aunt Ruth wasn't a threat. Maybe it was a promise. I turned off my phone. The last thing I did before I left Boston was walk through my empty apartment. 3 suitcases by the door. Everything else would stay behind. The second-hand couch, the beige carpet, the life I'd been living for everyone else. I taped my spare key to an envelope and slid it under my landlord's door. Month-to-month lease, paid through the end of January, clean break. I loaded my car as the sun came up. My Honda Civic, 10 years old and reliable as ever, the same car my mother had been embarrassed by for years. It was going to carry me to a new life. I didn't look back as I pulled away from the curb. The drive from Boston to Carmel by the sea takes about 45 hours if you push it. I didn't push it. I took 5 days stopping at roadside motels, eating at diners where nobody knew my name. Somewhere in Nebraska, I pulled over at a rest stop and just sat there watching the sunset paint the prairie in shades of gold and pink. I photographed it. My first shot as a free woman. On the 3rd day, my phone buzzed with a text from Megan. I turned it back on to check directions. Mom says, if you're not home when we get back from Hawaii, you're dead to her. I read it once, then I deleted it. She was already acting like I was dead anyway. At least now I'd be alive somewhere else. On the 4th day, I called Aunt Ruth from a gas station in Arizona. I'm about 8 hours out, I said. Your room is ready. Fresh sheets, ocean view, and Marcus wants to meet you tomorrow afternoon if you're up for it. My stomach flipped. Tomorrow? That's so fast. Wendy. Her voice was warm. Certain. You've been waiting 3 years for this. It's not fast. It's finally. When I crossed into California, something shifted inside me. The Pacific appeared on my left, vast and endless in blue. I rolled down my window and breathed salt air for the first time in my life. I cried then, not from sadness, from relief, from the overwhelming sensation of possibility. At 7 p.m. on the fifth day, I pulled into the driveway of the Ceramic Cup, Aunt Ruth's cafe and pottery studio in Carmel by the sea. She was waiting on the porch, arms open. "Welcome home," she said, and for the first time in 32 years, somewhere actually felt like it. Carmel by the sea is the kind of place that doesn't feel real at first. Cottages with storybook rooftops, art galleries on every corner, ocean mist rolling through cypress trees. The whole town felt like a painting someone had dreamed into existence. Aunt Ruth's cafe sat on a quiet street 2 blocks from the beach. The Ceramic Cup, hand-lettered sign, blue shutters, window boxes overflowing with lavender. The pottery studio occupied the back half of the building where she taught classes and sold her work to tourists who wandered in for coffee. My room was upstairs, small but bright, a bed with a white quilt, a desk by the window, and a view of the Pacific that made my chest ache with something I couldn't name. "You'll work the morning shift," Aunt Ruth explained over dinner that first night. 6 to noon. "After that, your time is yours. I don't know how to thank you for this." She waved her hand. "Don't thank me. Just build something. That's payment enough." The next morning, I woke before dawn. I tied on an apron, not the world's best aunt one I'd left behind. Just a simple canvas apron with the Ceramic Cup embroidered in blue thread, and learned how to make pour-over coffee. Customers came and went. Locals who knew Ruth by name. Tourists charmed by the homemade scones. I took orders, wiped tables, chatted with strangers who had no idea I'd run away from my entire life 5 days ago. By noon, I'd made 37 in tips. I'd smiled more than I had in months. And at 2 o'clock, I had an appointment at Coastal Light Gallery. I showered, changed into the nicest dress I owned, and walked 3 blocks to meet the man who might change everything. Marcus Coleman looked nothing like I expected. I'd imagined someone intimidating, slicked back hair, designer suit, the kind of gallery owner who made artists feel small. Instead, the man who greeted me at Coastal Light Gallery was tall and weathered with silver hair and kind eyes. He wore a linen shirt, sleeves rolled up, and smiled like we were already friends. "Wendy Dixon," he said, shaking my hand. "Ruth has told me a lot about you, but the work speaks for itself." He led me through the gallery. White walls, natural light, photographs, and paintings displayed with careful precision. This was a serious place, a place where art mattered. "I've looked through your Instagram extensively," Marcus continued. "The Invisible Women series is extraordinary. There's a truth in those images that most photographers spend decades trying to capture." I didn't know what to say. I'd never heard anyone describe my work that way. "This one." He stopped in front of a large monitor displaying my portfolio. On screen was a photograph I'd taken 2 years ago. An elderly woman waiting alone at a bus stop. Her face a map of lines and quiet dignity. "This is the one that made me reach out. There's something in her eyes. Patience maybe or resignation. It's heartbreaking." "She was waiting for a bus that came late," I said quietly. She'd been standing there for 40 minutes. Nobody stopped to offer help. Marcus nodded slowly. "You see people, Wendy. Really see them. That's a gift." He turned to face me and his next words landed like a key turning in a lock. "I'd like to offer you a solo exhibition. 15 pieces opening in 6 weeks. We'll cover printing, framing, and marketing. You keep 60 of all sales." I signed the contract on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting at Marcus' desk with sunlight streaming through the gallery windows. The document was simple. 15 photographs, opening night scheduled for late August. Coastal Light Gallery would handle production costs, printing, framing, installation, marketing. Materials. I would receive 60 of all sales revenue with the gallery retaining 40 as commission. Standard terms, Marcus assured me. Fair terms. But as I read through the pages, my hands started to shake. Take your time, Marcus said gently. This is a big step. It wasn't the business terms that overwhelmed me. It was seeing my name printed in official type. Artist, Wendy Dixon. A legal document recognizing that my work had value, that I had value. I thought about all the times I'd done my family's taxes without credit, all the parties I'd organized without thanks, all the hours spent caring for children who would grow up never knowing how much I'd given them. Not once had my name appeared on anything that celebrated my contribution until now. The exhibition title, Marcus said, pointing to a line near the bottom. I'd like your approval. We're proposing Invisible Women, Portraits of the Overlooked. Invisible Women. It's perfect, I whispered. I signed my name on the line. Marcus countersigned as witness. The document was notarized by his assistant, a young woman named Julia, who stamped the pages with official precision. When it was done, Marcus handed me my copy. Congratulations, Wendy. You're officially a represented artist. I walked out of that gallery holding the contract against my chest. Physical proof that I wasn't nothing, that I'd never been nothing. For 3 years, I'd built something in the shadows. Now, finally, it was about to step into the light. While I was building my new life in California, my family was discovering what my absence actually meant. I didn't witness these events firsthand. Of course, I heard about them later, pieced together from voicemails and texts and one very awkward phone call from my father. Apparently, Hawaii was a disaster. Without me there to babysit, Megan and Derek couldn't enjoy a single adults-only dinner. Oliver threw a tantrum on the beach because no one had remembered to pack his special sand castle bucket, something I always remembered. Sophie developed an ear infection on day 3, and nobody could find the pediatrician's number because I'd always been the one to keep track of medical information. My mother spent most of the trip complaining that the resort staff wasn't as attentive as expected. She called the concierge 3 times to complain about turned-down service. She sent back her Mai Tai twice. This isn't relaxing at all, she reportedly said. Who planned this trip? My father wisely did not remind her that she had planned it herself. The texts started arriving on day 4. Wendy, where are the kids' medication records? Wendy, what's Oliver's bedtime routine? He won't sleep. Wendy, the restaurant doesn't have a kids' menu. What would they eat? I didn't respond. I was too busy printing proofs at a photography lab in Monterey, selecting frames, and meeting with a journalist from Carmel magazine who wanted to interview me. But here's the thing about absence. It teaches people what they've been taking for granted. On day 6 of their Hawaiian vacation, Megan did something she'd never done before. She searched my name on Google, and for the first time, she found something other than a blank page. 6 weeks later, I stood in the center of Coastal Light Gallery and couldn't quite believe it was real. 15 of my photographs hung on the walls, each one printed large and framed in simple black. The gallery glowed with soft light. A string quartet played in the corner. Marcus's idea, not mine. A bartender in a crisp white shirt poured champagne. 50 guests moved through the space. Local artists I'd met through Aunt Ruth. Collectors Marcus had invited, a journalist from Carmel magazine, already taking notes. People who had come specifically to see my work on gallery walls with price tags that made me dizzy. I wore a navy dress, simple, elegant, nothing that screamed for attention. My hair was down for once. I'd even put on lipstick, something I rarely did. Aunt Ruth appeared at my side, pressing a glass of champagne into my hand. How do you feel? Terrified. I admitted. What if nobody buys anything? Someone already has. She nodded toward a woman in pearls, examining the centerpiece of my exhibition, the bus stop photograph, the one that had caught Marcus' attention. A small red dot had appeared on the wall placard beside it. That's Mrs. Peyton. She owns half the art in Monterey County. She just bought that piece for $3,000. $3,000 for something I'd created. Wendy. Marcus approached, grinning broadly. I want to introduce you to someone from the magazine. They're considering you for next month's cover feature. Cover feature. Magazine cover. My face, my name, my story, all in print. I was halfway through that introduction when the gallery door opened and my world tilted on its axis. Megan and Derek walked in, still sunburned from Hawaii. They looked completely out of place. Megan wore a floral sundress more suited to a beach brunch than an art opening. Derek had his phone out, already frowning at something on the screen. They both scanned the room with expressions I knew well, the look my family wore whenever they encountered something outside their understanding. Then Megan saw me. Wendy. She rushed forward, arms outstretched, like we were reuniting after a long separation she'd been dreading. Oh my God, we've been so worried about you. 50 guests turned to look. The string quartet faltered for half a beat before continuing. Megan, I kept my voice calm. This is unexpected. We had to come. Her eyes were wide. Earnest. We flew in yesterday. Mom found your Instagram. She's been calling everyone trying to track you down. Derek appeared behind her, nodding at me like we were business associates. Wendy, nice place. It's a gallery, I said. My gallery opening, actually. Megan blinked, taking in the photographs on the walls for the first time. Taking in the guests, the champagne, the price tags. You did all this? Her voice was genuinely confused. Since when do you do this? Since 3 years ago. You never asked what I did in my free time. Aunt Ruth materialized at my elbow, a quiet wall of support. Across the room, Marcus was watching carefully, ready to intervene if needed. Megan leaned closer, lowering her voice. Wendy, I have news. I'm pregnant again. Number 3. And I really need you to come home. Derek's work is crazy right now. Mom's not helpful with the kids. I need you. There it was. Not an apology, not congratulations on the exhibition. Just need. Always. Always their need. The words hung in the air between us. I need you. How many times had I heard that phrase? How many times had I dropped everything, rearranged my life, made myself small enough to fit into the space they'd carved out for me? Megan, I said quietly, I'm in the middle of my opening night. I know, and this is lovely. Really? She waved her hand at my life's work like it was a cute hobby. But we can talk about that later. Right now, I need to know when you're coming back. She's not coming back. Aunt Ruth's voice cut through like a blade. She lives here now. Derek stepped forward, irritation flickering across his face. With all due respect, Ruth, this is family business. Family business? Aunt Ruth laughed. A short, sharp sound. You mean the family that uninvited her from vacation and called her free help in emails she wasn't supposed to see? Megan went pale. Around us, guests had stopped pretending not to listen. The journalist from Carmel magazine, I noticed her pen moving rapidly across her notepad. We didn't mean it like that, Megan stammered. How exactly did you mean it? This came from Mrs. Peyton, the collector who'd just purchased my photograph. She stood nearby, champagne in hand, watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. I'm sorry, Derek said tightly. Who are you? Someone who just paid $3,000 for that young woman's art. Mrs. Peyton nodded toward my bus stop photograph. And someone who's very curious why her family seems to think she should abandon her career to be a babysitter. The temperature in the room dropped. 10 degrees. Megan looked at me, desperation in her eyes. Wendy, please, let's talk privately. Let me pause here for a second. If your family showed up at the most important night of your life, not to celebrate, but to drag you back to a life where you didn't exist, what would you say? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. And if you want to hear what happened next, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. Now, let me tell you what I said. I didn't retreat to a corner. For 32 years, I had made myself small. I had whispered, accommodated, disappeared. Not tonight. I stepped forward into the center of my own exhibition and spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. Megan, I understand that you're pregnant. Congratulations, genuinely, but I won't be coming back to Boston to be your childcare. Wendy, I'm not finished. My voice didn't waver. You can hire a nanny. You can hire two. Derek makes enough at Whitmore and Associates, and you've never had trouble spending money before. What you can't do is hire me because I was never paid. Megan's mouth opened, then closed. Around us, I could feel the gallery guests leaning in. This isn't a hobby, I continued, gesturing to the walls. This is my work. I've been building this for 3 years while everyone in our family assumed I had nothing important to do. And just so we're clear, I pointed to the photograph Mrs. Peyton had purchased. That piece just sold for $3,000. Tonight, I've sold 4 pieces totaling $8,000. My work has value. I have value, and I will not throw that away to go back to being free help. Silence. Absolute silence. Derek coughed uncomfortably. Megan's eyes were filling with tears. Real ones this time, I thought, not the performative kind. Then Marcus started to clap. Aunt Ruth joined him. Mrs. Peyton raised her champagne glass in a silent toast. One by one, the other guests followed. Applause rippled through the gallery. Not for my photographs, for me. For the moment, I finally stood up and said enough. I didn't smile triumphantly. I didn't gloat. I simply looked at my sister and said, I hope your pregnancy goes well. I truly do. Then I turned and walked away. The gallery door opened again 20 minutes later. I was in the middle of a conversation with the Carmel magazine journalist when I saw them. My parents standing in the entrance like they'd materialized from a nightmare. My mother wore her Burberry trench coat, the one she saved for important occasions. My father stood behind her in a blazer, looking uncomfortable and out of place. They scanned the room until their eyes found me. Patricia Dixon walked through my gallery like she owned it. Wendy. Her voice carried the same tone she'd used when I was 8 and had tracked mud onto her clean floors. We need to talk. The journalist raised an eyebrow. I excused myself and moved to intercept my parents before they could cause more of a scene. You came all this way, I said evenly. Of course we did. You disappeared. You left your family when we needed you most. My mother's voice trembled with righteous indignation. And now I find you here playing artist while your sister is pregnant and struggling. Megan is pregnant and wealthy, I corrected. She's not struggling. She's inconvenienced. Don't be cruel, Wendy. This isn't you. You're right. I took a breath. It isn't the me you wanted. The me that you could count on to do whatever you asked. But that Wendy was never seen. Mom, she was just used. My father cleared his throat. Wendy, your mother is trying to say, I know what she's trying to say, Dad. I've heard it my whole life. Family comes first. Make sacrifices. Don't be selfish. I met his eyes. But I wasn't part of the family trip to Hawaii. Remember? So, which is it? Am I family or aren't I? Neither of them had an answer. My mother recovered first. Hawaii was one trip, she said dismissively. You're blowing this out of proportion. Someone had to stay with the children. Someone, I repeated. Why me? Why always me? Because you have the time. You don't have a husband. You don't have children of your own. What else would you be doing? I'd wondered if I would ever use those screenshots. Part of me had hoped I'd never have to. But standing there in my gallery, surrounded by my work and my witnesses, I realized that some truths need to be spoken aloud. I pulled out my phone. Let me read you something, I said, my voice steady. This is an email you sent to Megan before the anniversary party. My mother's face went white. Keep Wendy here to watch the kids. She doesn't have anything important to do anyway. It's like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. The gallery had gone silent again. I could feel every eye on us. And Megan replied, I continued. She'll probably feel useful for once. It's kind of sad. Megan, standing a few feet away, looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. Wendy, my father started. Where did you? It doesn't matter where I found it. What matters is that you wrote it. I lowered my phone. I'm not reading this to embarrass anyone. I'm reading it so you understand why I left. You didn't see me as family. You saw me as staff. And staff has the right to quit. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time in my life, Patricia Dixon was speechless. The journalist from Carmel magazine was still writing. It was Derek who broke first. This is ridiculous. He snapped, stepping forward. Wendy, you're making a scene over nothing. So your family asked you to babysit. Big deal. That's what families do. Not everyone gets to run off and pretend to be an artist. Pretend. Mrs. Peyton's voice cut through the room like ice. I just spent $3,000 on her work. I don't pay that kind of money for pretend. Derek turned, his corporate composure cracking. With respect, ma'am, you don't know this family. This is between us. Actually, I know exactly what I need to know. Mrs. Peyton set down her champagne glass. I know that young woman has spent years photographing people society overlooks, and I know her own family treated her exactly the same way. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Guests were openly staring now. The kind of attention my mother had always craved, but not like this. Never like this. My mother tried to salvage the situation. This is a misunderstanding. Family jokes are being taken out of context. A joke? Another voice. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and a kind face. I'd sold her a photograph earlier that evening. Telling your daughter she has nothing important to do. Calling her free help. What's funny about that? More murmurs, more judgment. The social capital my mother had spent decades accumulating was evaporating in real time. I think, Aunt Ruth said gently, it might be time for you to leave. My mother's face flushed scarlet. My father took her arm. Megan was crying now. Real humiliated tears. Derek stood frozen, finally understanding that his courtroom tactics meant nothing here. Wendy, my mother said, her voice shaking. You'll regret this. No, I said quietly. I really won't. My mother left first. She turned on her heel without another word, pulling my father behind her. The gallery door closed with a soft click that somehow echoed louder than a slam. Megan lingered, mascara smudged, arms wrapped around herself like a child caught misbehaving. Wendy, her voice cracked. I didn't know you felt this way. I thought you liked helping. No, you didn't, I said not unkindly. You didn't think about it at all. None of you did. Derek put a hand on Megan's shoulder. For once, he said nothing. Maybe he'd finally run out of arguments. I hope your pregnancy is healthy, I added. I hope your kids are happy, but I won't be their live-in aunt anymore. If you want to be in my life, it has to be different. It has to be equal. Megan nodded, tears streaming. I understand. I wasn't sure she did, but it wasn't my job to make her understand anymore. They left through the same door our parents had used. The gallery let out a collective breath. Aunt Ruth appeared beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You okay? I think so. I let out a shaky laugh. I just told off my entire family in public at my own art show. You did, and you were magnificent. Marcus approached, pressing a fresh glass of champagne into my hand. For what it's worth, I've been doing this for 20 years. Never seen an opening night quite like this one. Is that good or bad? He smiled. Let's just say everyone here is going to remember your name. And that, Wendy Dixon, is exactly what an artist needs. I looked around at my photographs, my gallery, my new life. For once, I didn't feel invisible. By the time the gallery closed that night, I had sold 8 of 15 photographs. 8 pieces, 14,000 in total sales. 8,400 would go to me, 60, just like the contract promised. Marcus handed me the printout of the evening's transactions as the last guest filtered out. Not bad for an opening night, especially one with unexpected family drama. I stared at the numbers. 8,400, more than I'd made in 3 months of part-time accounting work. Mrs. Peyton wants to commission a piece, Marcus continued. She has a vacation home in Big Sur. Wants you to photograph the coastline. A commission. Private collectors often work that way. She liked your eye. She wants to see what you do with her landscape. He handed me a business card. Her assistant's contact. Call them next week. I tucked the card carefully into my clutch next to my copy of the gallery contract and the magazine interview. Marcus added, Susan said she has enough material for a feature. They're considering you for next month's cover. Cover of an actual magazine with my name and my face and my story. Aunt Ruth helped me carry the unsold photographs back to my room above the cafe that night. 7 pieces still waiting for the right buyers, but 7 was better than 15. 7 meant people had seen value in what I created. I set the check on my desk, the first check I'd ever received for my art, and photographed it, not to post anywhere, just to remember. Payable to Wendy Dixon, 8,400. Proof. Physical proof that I wasn't nothing, that I'd never been nothing at all. 2 months later, my new life had a rhythm. I woke at 5, watched the sun rise over the Pacific from my window, and opened the ceramic cup by 6. Morning shift until noon, pouring coffee, chatting with regulars, learning the names of locals who now recognized me as Ruth's niece, the photographer. Afternoons belonged to my work. I'd rented a small studio space 3 blocks from the cafe, just big enough for my editing equipment and a printing station. The gallery exhibition had closed, but Marcus had already scheduled another show for spring. This time a series called Boundaries. Photographs of edges, thresholds, the spaces between belonging and being alone. It felt right. The magazine article came out in October. My face on the cover of Carmel magazine next to the headline, The Artist Who Learned to See Herself. The article told my story, edited, of course, with names changed to protect the innocent and the guilty alike. But the truth was there. The invisibility, the breaking point, the choice. People reached out. Women who'd been the family helper, the reliable one, the one everyone forgot to thank. Their messages filled my inbox like a chorus of recognition. I thought I was the only one. You gave me permission to leave. Thank you for showing me it's possible. My family reached out, too. Eventually. Megan texted after the baby was born. A girl named Charlotte. She sent a photo. I sent congratulations and a gift card. Nothing more. My mother called once. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail asking if I'd gotten this out of my system yet. I deleted it. But my father surprised me. His email arrived on a Tuesday evening, 3 sentences long. Wendy, I saw the magazine. I'm proud of you. That one I kept. Today I'm sitting in my studio looking out at the Pacific. The Canon camera I bought from that pawn shop still sits on my shelf, older now, battered but still working. Next to it sits a newer model, one I purchased with money I earned from my art. Both cameras matter. One reminded me to see. The other proves that people saw me back. My second exhibition opens next month. Boundaries. 15 new photographs, each one exploring the edges of connection, where family ends and self begins, where obligation crosses into exploitation, where love becomes something else entirely. I think it might be my best work yet. Aunt Ruth stops by every morning with coffee and commentary. Marcus checks in weekly with updates about collectors and opportunities. The ceramic cup regulars have started requesting the photographer's table by the window where I sometimes edit photos between customers. I'm not rich. I'm not famous, but I'm seen. And that's enough. As for my family, we exist in a new configuration now. Christmas cards, birthday texts, the occasional update about the children. Civil, distant, healthier than before. I haven't been back to Boston. Maybe someday I will, but only as a visitor, never as the help. The other day I was going through old photographs and found one I'd taken years ago. A self-portrait shot in the mirror of my Boston apartment back when I was still invisible. The woman in that photo looked tired, defeated, like she was waiting for permission to exist. I deleted it. That woman is gone now. In her place is someone who takes up space, who creates beautiful things, who says no when she means no and yes only when she chooses. Someone who finally let herself be seen. That's the real story, not revenge, not triumph, just freedom. From a psychological perspective, Wendy's story illustrates something called parentification, when a child, often the eldest, takes on adult responsibilities without recognition or reciprocity. She also occupied the scapegoat role, the family member whose needs are consistently deprioritized, while a golden child, Megan, receives endless attention and resources. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. It's not abandonment. It's the recognition that you cannot pour from an empty cup and that the people who truly love you won't ask you to. If you're in a situation like Wendy's, remember your worth isn't measured by how useful you are to others. It's inherent. It was always there. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fight back. It's walk away. Build something of your own. Let your life speak louder than any argument ever could. You deserve that. We all do.